Hey everyone, welcome to the I Heart Podcast. My name is Jonathan North, and welcome to the first official episode of my new show. As I launched this podcast, I thought I would introduce any new listeners who might be tuning in to some of the things I've done in the past as I built up my YouTube channel, starting with the show that basically launched the entire thing, and kind of set the stage for everything that would come after, Wonderland Wednesday. When I started my YouTube channel in 2017, I didn't have much of a direction. All I knew is that I wanted to review movies. I'd been reviewing animation for rotoscopers.com since the beginning of 2015, and I wanted to kind of expand on that and develop my video editing skills at the same time. So when I started, I was just reviewing a few new movies and not much else. Then my friend Rachel Wagner suggested that I review the 2010 version of Alice in Wonderland. Because she did not like it, I did like it, and she thought I should make a video about why I liked it, since most online reviewers seem to agree more with her than with me. Rachel's suggestion got me to thinking there are probably a few versions of Alice in Wonderland out there. I could probably make a series out of this idea. I've always liked Alice in Wonderland as a story, partly because of the 1999 version, which I grew up watching a lot. I remember taping it on a VCR when it first aired, which tells you how long ago that was, and it ended up being one of the very first VHS tapes that I bought for myself, and also one of the last, because that was about the time that DVDs blew up and VHS died. Anyway, I loved the story before that, but I think that movie is what made me the fan I am today. So I took Rachel's suggestion and reviewed the 2010 version, and I decided to call the series Wonderland Wednesday. I needed a catchy title, and I love alliteration, and most big YouTubers have a set schedule, so I thought, why not release these episodes every Wednesday? So after I did that episode, I moved on to the 1999 version, and then Rachel suggested that I do the 1933 version, which I'd never heard of. My cousin Sarah likes Alice in Wonderland as well, though maybe not to the degree that I do, but she really enjoys a lot of older movies too, so I thought that since I was already going to be watching this old black and white version, I'd see if she wanted to watch it with me. She did, and then later she seemed interested in watching even more, especially the silent versions. We ended up watching the earliest known version, and she actually ended up enjoying that one so much that I asked her if she wanted to review it with me, on camera, and to my surprise, she actually agreed. We ended up continuing to watch more versions together just about every week that summer, and the conversational format that we kind of developed together over those few months is what led me to make more shows in the same style. So in this first episode of my podcast, I wanted to revisit some of our earlier reviews. I was originally going to do 2 in 1 and make a really long episode, but I've decided to keep the first couple episodes kind of short for now. I thought for this first one we could start with the first review that Sarah and I did together, which was about the 1903 silent version of Alice in Wonderland. Instead of just porting over the videos from YouTube and inserting the exact same audio, I decided to go back to my old hard drive, find the original files, and recut the review for the podcast. When I edit for YouTube, I tend to remove bloopers and rabbit trails, and I figured half the fun of podcasts is listening to the hosts go off on tangents, so I kind of wanted to do the same thing here. There won't be as many tangents in this first episode as there are in some that are coming up, but I still wanted to make sure that I keep these podcasts as conversational as they were when we first recorded them. And in case you're wondering, yes, we recorded most of this outside. We did it for the lighting and ambiance, but it didn't really do the sound any favors, unless you really like the ambient nature noises, in which case it did the sound plenty of favors. We ended up having some technical difficulties and moved inside, which you'll see like a little over halfway through. But, oh well, you live and learn, and I like to think of everything that I do online, whether it's for YouTube or now for this podcast, as learning experience. And that day we learned that wind is not a friend of microphones. Anyway, let's get on to the review. Hello, welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. Today I have my very first ever guest. This is Sarah, my cousin, and we're going to talk about the 1903 silent version of Alice in Wonderland. This was a really different version than any I've watched before. It was really short, it was only 8 minutes, so this probably won't be a very long review video, but we really liked it and we wanted to talk about it. What did you like about it?
I have a really long list, so it depends on whether you want to go first or whether we just want to go back and forth.
Well, let's just go through it scene by scene. So the movie starts with Alice going down the rabbit hole, and she gets to the door which she can't get through, and she finds the eat me and drink me items. So there's this really long sequence where she's eating and drinking and shrinking and growing, and I have a feeling that the movie was probably made just to be sort of an experiment with different film techniques, because it really seemed very experimental in that scene.
Right off the bat, I think it's really fun because you have her sleeping there, and then this obviously full-grown man comes along in this bulky rabbit costume, and it's what you imagine people making a spin-off film like, this is what the old films were like, but it's actually from 1903.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I will say is, you know how big I am on things being period correct.
Yes.
But I loved that they weren't period correct, because they had Alice in a dress of the times, and I absolutely love that period. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm actually doing this film with you, because you could tell how excited I was. So she has the big Anne of Green Gables puffed sleeves, this beautiful white dress, and the long flowing hair, whereas, you know, when it was first published, that was 1865, it would have been a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So I really loved that.
Yeah, the costumes were pretty great. Especially Alice's. She had the best look, I thought.
Yeah, it was very elegant, and if you're crazy about that time, it's worth watching it just to see those. And I thought they did a great job with the Mad Hatter as well. They had at least 2 different prints, because you could see the really big tag on his hat, and his bow tie was huge. It looked like it might have had little hearts or something, and really loud checked pants. So even though it's not color, you get that this is a crazy person.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get back to that part.
Yeah, exactly.
So, after she gets into the garden, there's a dog, just for like a brief moment. I don't think it was in the book. We talked about it. We don't remember. We both don't remember.
It seemed really random.
Yeah, apparently I think it was the director's dog, and I have a feeling he just wanted his dog in the movie, so he just made the scene for it. I'm not 100% sure, that's just my guess.
Yeah, they tell it like, oh, this is what Alice is doing, even whether was actually in the book or not. Mm-hmm. Another thing I think is important to note about this is that I think it was obviously made for people who are already really familiar with the story. If you had no idea what Alice in Wonderland was all about, don't start with this.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean, it's already a strange story, but the way they piece together the scenes, like the Duchess's house, you really don't know what's going on.
It just seemed like they picked out a bunch of random scenes from the book and filmed them.
This was obviously a fan film. They would have already known and loved the story, and they could be pointing, oh yeah, there's a Dutch, oh man, that is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the next scene. She enters the kitchen with the Duchess and the cook, and it's insane like it's supposed to be, but there's really no context given at all. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for a random watcher.
And honestly, I think you only really notice the broken dishes towards the end of it. Otherwise, it seems kind of jerky, and you're like, okay, this is a woman with a giant hat holding a baby, another woman moving around. Oh wait, which I already knew she was supposed to be throwing dishes, so I was watching for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will say that may be one of the least disturbing, if not the least disturbing, transformation of the baby into a pig. That was really, they chose a really cute pig, and she's over next to this beautiful brick wall that might have a climbing rose on it, which I'm a gardener too, so it's like, oh, is that a rose? So that's really cute.
So after the pig runs off, then she sees the Cheshire Cat, which Sarah went
totally
crazy for.
Geeked out about this cat, because I'm so used to fake cats. Somehow they've managed to, I don't know what, a puppet, an animation.
It's always something like slightly disturbing.
Which makes sense. I mean, if you look at the old illustration, it's not going to look like a natural cat, but they were working with, like I say, it's 1903, they're working with what they have, and the cat that they had, which I'm also obviously a cat person, looked like, and maybe it wasn't any specific breed, but maybe what Persians used to look like before they bred in the little smushed face, or maybe a Maine Coon. Huge fur and those little white spots right on the muzzle pieces. I mean,
it was adorable.
Beyond adorable. It's one of those moments where you have the cute factor where you want to reach in and pet the cat, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So I got really excited about that.
Yeah.
And then you basically have her, like the director must have been just, wave your handkerchief at those bushes, because then they just have the little inset of the cat. And,
yeah, this cat was superimposed over the shrubbery.
And, the cat just looks like it's laying there doing its thing. Like, I have no idea what you're doing. But, I mean, it's adorable.
Uh-huh. So after the Cheshire Cat, she ends up at the Mad Tea Party, which it was another thing given not really any context, but for those of us who'd read the book and watched other versions, we knew what was going on.
And if anybody knows anything about Alice, that's one of the most iconic things. Mm-hmm. When they first go to the table, that's another thing I really enjoyed about it, is this is a more, not that we're not elegant now, but we associate elegant things with that time period. So you have the white tablecloth, and she has this really beautiful chair that's high back with what do you call that, with the little buttons in it. It's just kind of just the way it's upholstered.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of what it's called.
It's very old-fashioned and beautiful. So you have those elements that are of the time that I really liked, and that it's not just illustrated; it was actually there, and it was probably maybe a little more normal back then. But I don't know. They must have ripped it off of somebody's living room or something. I don't know. It looked really cool, and it was a nice light color, so the details on it showed up really well. Mm-hmm. But we may spend more time talking about what the film was like than the actual length of the film, maybe shorter than our opinions of it.
I thought that might happen.
Yeah. I think it might be good to mention too, when you first go to the tea party, I don't know how much I noticed the mouse.
The dormouse.
Right in the middle. And that was a part that you really liked, is as she's leaving, they pick up this mouse and are trying to stuff it, and it's the size of a small child, but I don't think there's no dormice or children were harmed. No dormice or children were harmed in the making of that scene. It just looked like a big stuffed animal.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I think the guy who played the Mad Hatter was kind of shaking it as he tried to stuff in the teapot, so it looked like the mouse was wriggling around.
Yeah, they added a little life.
Yeah.
But that was cute. You do get, other than that, it doesn't really look like a crazy tea party until that scene. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
So after she's left the tea party, she finds a procession of cards, which these were different cards than you're kind of used to, because these were all children dressed up as the playing cards.
I'm just guessing that they went into some school and like, hey kids, we're making a movie. You guys want to be in the movie? Yeah! And it was adorable.
Yeah, it was really funny to see this whole giant herd of children marching down this walkway.
Led by the rabbit. Well, was it the rabbit?
The rabbit was leading, and I think the Mad Hatter might have been behind too.
Like right in the back. But I wonder if they got to pick their costumes or whether they were a little bit gender specific, because I thought maybe I saw a little bit of a girl bias on the heart cards with the little heart.
I didn't notice that. But that's true. That's hilarious.
It's like, I want to be a heart. And at least one of those girls just had beautiful hair. That's who else. She just has beautiful flowing, really thick hair, and it adds a really nice time period correct.
Yeah. So after the parade of cards has gone by, she meets the Queen and apparently gets into an altercation, which is followed by the Queen ordering her to be beheaded. And the executioner is another child, a child holding a giant axe, which was kind of a funny visual.
A cute child holding a giant axe coming after her, and then she boxes his ears, which, yeah. it was 1903, so why not? But if you think about Alice in Wonderland with all of the off with your head, that's really fits right in.
Okay, we're back. We had a little technical glitch. The camera shut off, and then we realized the wind was kind of ruining everything we were saying in the last part of it.
Really picked up.
So, we're trying again. So, after she's finished almost being executed, she is almost overrun by the horde of children in card costumes.
Yes, she flies off the scene. You can't see her, and it's just child after child running down this same walkway. It's meant to be a very aggressive scene.
It was like a whole flock of wild animals, except it was children in costume.
And one of my favorite parts of the film was that part, because one or more of the children, as they're running by, you can see them smiling, and I really...
You could tell they loved what they were doing.
Yeah, and at a time when a lot of photographs would have still been serious, that would have been the proper thing to do, unless they accidentally caught you smiling or doing something weird or just a blur, then it's really special to see children having a great time and have that little moment in time captured where you just have their unbounded joy. And that was, I think, really fun. A really fun time capsule that you can't completely get from photographs or just reading the history.
Yeah, it was a great scene. Just, you could tell the children were having a great time chasing Alice down the walkway.
Most of them looked like they could be between the ages of 5, 10, 12.
Yeah.
None of them
were
they
old.
were meant to be little cards. And the queen was bigger than them, which you don't always, like in the animated version.
Yeah, usually the cards are adults too.
They're adult size.
Yeah.
If you think of the 1950s Disney version. Yeah. So I think that was a fun take on it, and it was probably cheap labor, but it was a really cute idea.
Yeah. I wonder how much they paid all the children. Maybe nothing. They just,
you got to be in a movie. You got to help. Congratulations.
Well, a lot of people do. A lot of people just want to be extras just to say they can be in a movie. So.
Yeah, and at a time when that would have been really new, that would have been novel.
Yeah.
But.
So after the flock of children has run by the camera, it slowly fades back into the garden scene where Alice is waking up in her yard. So it was another one of those things where, it was just a dream, and then that's where the movie ends.
Still in her fantastic dress. Not sure if she was wearing an apron. If she was, it was white on white.
Sarah likes aprons.
Yeah, I like aprons. I like. We're covering so many of my favorite things, because it would also have been nice if they'd had Dinah, throw in another cat. And I think it would have been neat too if you would have had the teacher involved as well, like the teacher reading or something. And I only say that because then you would have had another cool dress, another person from that period, living and moving, and that would have been fun to study yet another outfit, but.
These days, Wonderland Wednesday is not a weekly show like it was back in the early days of my channel, but I still like doing it. I don't see Sarah as often as I did back then, so I kind of saved that show as something for us to do together when I visit home. We're definitely going to keep it going, but it's not always going to end up as a podcast. So if you want more Alice in Wonderland reviews, make sure to subscribe to my channel on YouTube. We recorded a couple more over the holidays, and I just need to find some time to make them into episodes. That being said, we have reviewed other versions that I think will make for some great podcasts, so in the future you can be on the lookout for some of those. Like I said earlier, I had originally thought I would make this first episode very long with 2 reviews, but I changed my mind at the last second, so I have a whole review cut and ready to go for another podcast. It's one of the worst versions we've ever seen, but I actually think that sometimes the worse a movie is, the better it makes the discussion. Anyway, that review will be coming later once I've put out a few more episodes. This podcast is not going to be the Wonderland Wednesday podcast, so I'm going to have to make sure I space these out. In the meantime, in the next episode, I want to introduce you to another show that has become a staple of my YouTube channel, and basically the inspiration for this entire podcast, I Heart Animation. I'm bringing back one of my favorite episodes, a review I did with my friend Sol about one of her favorite childhood films. And Sol actually came back the other day to record a brand new, never-before-heard segment just for the podcast. So we'll have 2 segments in the next episode, the review, and a little Q&A with Sol. I'm really excited for this one, so I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.